You like to define your database structure in a blueprint statement per entity and access the database schema as a REST microservice on internet all within 15 minutes or less. I certainly would, especially if I'm at a session discussing a new business application. My name is Denis Havrilov and I'm founder of NoteWeb.com, information and product owner of Note Web system powering the website. This is the second video in the series about Note Web PaaS DSL service, its blueprint language for defining microservices landscapes for AWS and how it can help to streamline your development. In the previous video, we have defined a blueprint, generated source code and deployment scripts, and deployed a new Java Spring Boot microservice behind an AWS load balancer to an AWS ECS cluster. This microservice relied on an embedded database. Today, we are going to provision the same microservices with an AWS RDS MySQL backend. We'd also give it a user-friendly name under PaaS NoteWeb.com domain. Going forward, we do blue-green deployments. This time it's not really needed since there are no actual persistent data containers to migrate during the deployment. This demo blueprint consisted of AWS ECS cluster and the container service definitions. Container service definitions also included the logical model. Here it is. So we work with two entities, trip and vehicle, and only a handful of fields. Here is how we are going to augment this landscape with definition of the database instance and the two tables to receive the data used by our microservice. See, we rely only on the default values and only specify the type of the database instance, MySQL. So we can also specify some lower level details about primary keys and auto-increment value types, column types. Also, here we need to specify it in the microservice blueprint that its database type is MySQL and database URL is the database instance previously defined. Also, we would like to have our microservice registered with a user-friendly DNS name, and that's how we achieve it in the microservices blueprint. As mentioned, it would be available under in the subdomain under ps.noteweb.com. Real quick, that we don't have any of the objects to be created and deployed by this blueprint pre-existing. So we don't have any ECS cluster in the target AWS account. We don't have any repositories. No load balancers. No database instances whatsoever. Also, the Route 53 hosted zone does not contain a record to be published, to be available from internet. The one that is going to be set up is called demospring.ps.noteweb.com. Also, the target Git repository does not yet have a branch which is going to be set up as part of this exercise. The branch is controlled in the container service definition, and it's going to be PVDORAC 2022-08. Okay, so we're all set. Let's submit the blueprint for processing by Note Web Platform as a Service DSL service. And so the longest part is actually setting up an RDS instance. It's going to take about 9 minutes just for this one. And there's going to be a backup created and so forth. So I'm going to pause recording. You see, the instance is already there, but there are still stages to complete. until it's available and until the blueprint deployment script carries on. So I'll pause for now. And deployment still runs, but database instance is already available. So we can go ahead and take a look at its configuration. I've already pre-crafted the MySQL connections string. That's basically exact copy-paste of the endpoint class. Okay, here it is. See, that's our database, the one that we configured in the blueprint. And vehicles tables have already been provisioned as well, but they're currently empty. Type of asset. By the way, in the meantime, we see that the Note Web PaaS DSL service is done and running. So all of the objects have already been provisioned. And we see that the MySQL tables are currently empty. And that's the database structure. Blueprint deployment output is just a blob of information about created resources and log entries, but that all will be comprehensively displayed in Note Web UI. So, I would like to show that now we also have the route 53 entry that was supposed to be created by the blueprint deployment scripts. Exactly, here it is. So we can go ahead and contact our recently deployed microservice backed by these tables here in MySQL, and we can use REST API to access data. Newly deployed service to pass all the health checks, but once they're there, we can see the target group registration is complete all as well, and it means that we can go ahead and query our recently deployed service that would talk to our just deployed MySQL database instance. And we do it with a curl once again that looks like this. So here's our route 53 subdomain name provisioned under the hosted zone is specified, and the URL, this corresponds to the URL prefix that we passed at the service definition, and this corresponds to the logical entity that we also specified in the container service definition. So you see here we get the response. Now we can go ahead and try to create a record. Exactly the same as I did in the previous previous video that we presented in the previous blog article. So here we specify the same URL, we change the HTTP method, the content or the body of request contains a single record of a trip, basically, and just deployed trips microservice REST API. There it is, successful completion. Next time I'll issue a command so that it outputs also the HTTP response code. Let's take a look if we have the data in the table. Yep, there it is. Here's our record. Just great. That we can access the data that we just created. Yep, there it is. Great. So, just to wrap up, we've taken the Note Web PaaS DSL blueprint code from the previous demo. We've augmented it with RDS MySQL instance and database table definitions. We've also enforced container service definition with microservice, root 53 name, DNS name, and configured its data source type and reference to the trips database instance defined today as well. We've just to show you how many objects and resources have been created and provisioned. So there's been a cluster, an ECS cluster created, an ECS service deployed, a repository, and load balancer, target group, RDS instance have been there already. And just as I've showed on the previous demo, there has also been a new branch created in the target repository, and going forward we'll be pushing the generated code over to GitHub. No changes in the Note Web PaaS DSL service is required to accomplish this. And so, stay tuned for the next Note Web channel video to watch live. Today's demo Note Web PaaS DSL blueprint code to be enhanced with Python and Django and TypeScript Dynamo microservices definitions will also show how Note Web PaaS DSL transparently handles data migration issues during a blue-green style deployment. And those would be, well, I think there would be at least a few videos more in this series to cover the original scenario that are outlined in this blog post here. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell button to get notifications when we post new videos to the Note Web channel.